All right, looks like we just had a few more people join. It's 8 o'clock right now. Sorry, 8 o'clock my time. Not sure what time it is for everyone else. We got people joining from all over, but it's the top of the hour, so we're going to go ahead and get started with today's webinar. All right, so the topic, as I'm sure you've seen, is practical insights, mobile mapping for 3D modeling. So really excited about today's webinar. We have 3 panelists joining us, all with a little bit different experience and expertise, all of whom are end users of GeoSLAM products. So I'm really excited to have these 3 guys on here to just kind of have sort of an open discussion in a forum of GeoSLAM technology and the ways that they're using it and integrating it and the different products that we offer and all of that. So we'll go ahead and jump in. But first I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Brian Rosensteel. I'm a senior solutions architect with GeoSLAM. There's my email right there if you ever do want to reach out to me, as well as my phone number. Feel free to contact me if you ever have any questions following this webinar about GeoSLAM products. I'm based in the Western United States in California. So my territory is pretty much all of the Western United States, but I do help out with opportunities really all over, anywhere I can be useful. So my job is really to work with our dealers and work with prospective customers and kind of be a champion for the technology and help integrate the technology into various workflows. Most of my experience is in laser scanning and scan to BIM, mostly on the services side. I was an end user of GeoSLAM products before I joined the company over a year ago, and really excited to be a part of the team and really excited to be a part of this webinar today. So joining us today, we have Greg Davies from Precision Property Measurements. They have multiple offices based in California. They're specializing in professional as-builts, survey, and drafting services. Next, we have Jim Foster from PointKnown, based on the East Coast, around Boston, Massachusetts area, if I'm not mistaken. They specialize in 3D capture, modeling, and documentation, so kind of a similar role as Precision Property Measurements. And then from our dealer network, we have Bobby Vargo. His name's Robert Vargo, but he goes by Bobby, so I'll be referring to him as Bobby in this webinar. He is from Keystone Precision Instruments, based in the Northeast United States, and they specialize in selling geospatial solutions, and they're also, of course, a GeoSLAM dealer, so he's well versed in the technology and how to apply it to 3D modeling workflows. All right, Greg, I'm going to let you kind of do your own introductions here, so take it away.
Awesome, yeah. Thanks, Brian. My name is Greg. I work at PPM. I'm the Director of Special Operations. As Brian mentioned, PPM provides building surveys and as-built documentation, both to local AEC firms from our offices in Long Beach, Oakland, Washington, D.C., and Seattle. And then our special operations team covers AEC firms that are nationally focused, that work on retail rollouts, hospitality, and facilities. So we're headquartered out of Long Beach, and I think we're just about to hit 40 employees in 5 states. We use a wide variety of tools to gather our as-built survey data, but we're proud to use GeoSLAM tools daily on almost 100% of our local residential and commercial projects.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. And I apologize, I did not realize that you had offices outside of California, so that's great.
Yeah, we're opening more every year.
Amazing. All right, Jim, take it away.
Yeah, good morning and afternoon to everybody. My name is Jim Foster. I founded PointKnown back in 2003, hard to believe. We delivered our first as-built in Revit in 2006, so have been within the 3D world for a long time and have seen most technologies, come through our door, and have been really impressed with GeoSLAM, so really happy to take part in that. We're also part of the Autodesk Developer Network, creating our own software and bolt-ons to Revit. So 18 years experience doing this, and I'm glad I'm again here to talk about GeoSLAM today, because it's been, at least for us, an easy button.
Thanks, Jim. We're glad to have you today as well. All right, Bobby, last but not least.
Thanks, Brian. So like Brian mentioned, I go by either Bobby or Robert. So I am the mobile imaging and GIS consultant here at Keystone Precision Solutions. We're based here in the Northeast, from just north of Washington, D.C., all the way up through the border with Maine. So here at Keystone, we are a GeoSLAM authorized dealer alongside Team Yellow at Trimble. And I have had the privilege of leading the GeoSLAM discussion here in the Northeast per Keystone's permission, and have had a really great time working with a variety of different customers, specifically going from customers like Jim Foster here all the way down to people looking to explore caves and documenting what they find. So I'm happy to be here today with all you guys and to answer as many questions as we can.
Excellent. Thank you, Bobby. All right, let's dive into the questions. Just to kind of do a brief intro to the questions. Each question I have specifically assigned to a specific panelist. The questions kind of come in different parts. So you have the main question at the top. In the middle is sort of a follow-up question, and then at the bottom are sort of talking points or things that we can dive into, time permitting. We also are going to take questions from the audience. So at any point during this webinar, if a question comes up on your end, please put that in the chat panel below, and then time permitting, we will address those at the end of the webinar, just as we wrap up. So just wanted to give everybody a heads up on that. All right, so first question we have here is for Jim Foster with PointKnown. Wanted to ask, why did you decide to buy a GeoSLAM system? Which systems did you choose and why? And then maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the criteria that you used for evaluating the technology when you were first starting out, and maybe talk a little bit how GeoSLAM matches up to other technology that you looked at. You don't necessarily need to name any other technology by name unless you want to, but yeah, let's start there.
Terrific. Thanks, Brian. So I'm going to answer that question with a story. So buckle in. Probably like Greg and PPM Co, right? We see a lot of technology that come through our office all the time, right? And because I think when we see technology that helps us, we'll embrace it really quickly. But again, we see a lot of stuff that we can't put to use. And when and it wasn't Robert who showed me the first one, the Zeb one, but I ended up purchasing the Zeb one, and this is how it happened. I was told that this technology works. Again, I had only seen it, I think out of Stanford, people using it, on the spring, and I never thought it was going to be commercially available. Again, I was told that it was, bring it in my office. I was completely skeptical that it would work. And Bill, who was the distributor at the time, proceeded to go around my office and collect the data. While I'm talking to him, he's processing on the laptop. Again, and I'm assuming, I'm putting in words in Greg's mouth, but I'm assuming, since we're both in the same business, that when we're training people, we train them on the office to start, like on new technology. We've had it done like 3,000 times, so we have it down to the millimeter. So if someone's going to do it, we can see where the errors are, where they're making the errors, how well new technology is going to work into it. Bill processed it, put it in. I immediately brought it into Revit, and my response was, okay, I'll take it. Like immediately when I saw the data, I'm like, I'll take it. And he's like, oh, that's great. I'll write you up right now. I'm like, no, I bought the demo unit off him. I did not let him leave my office with the demo unit, because I could see the efficacy almost immediately. And so we put it out in the field. I think the next day we were still using our same processes. We were doing data collection in parallel with our normal processes, just so I could compare the two for a long period of time. I think we did that on a ton of projects. until we had faith. Now, it's not like the ZEB1 ever fell down. I just, for us, right, and again, Greg, for our industry, we have to deliver a quality product. And so I wanted to make sure I could be able to turn the data from the ZEB1 into a quality product. And then, we evolved into buying the Revo when it came out, right? And the Revo was a step above ZEB1 in collection, just let's say from ease of use kind of point of view. And then more recently bought the Horizon, and because of just mostly the specs, right? Because when we scope out a project, we have to see what kind of technology we can use for it, right? And we'll come up with a technology roadmap. It's based on the client, the granularity of what they need, and what we have to bring in to bear into a product. And honestly, with the Horizon, which I don't know the hardware you stick and stuff in the sensors and stuff you put in it, and I know you use the Velodyne for the Horizon anyway. The distance and the density of the data with the Horizon also allowed us to not bring a terrestrial scanner into some projects, because now we were getting distance where before we weren't. And so when I'm looking at the product and coming up with our own technology roadmap, right, it is what's the scope of the project, what does the client need, and what's the granularity of the data that we need. And I find the latest one that we're using, the Horizon, is really kind of covering all three really well. We do use a drone on a lot of our projects, and convert that, use the photogrammetry to convert that into a point cloud. That's good for context, right, and kind of volumes, but it doesn't give you a level of detail that you're really going to model from. But it gives us good site context. And so we'll use a GeoSLAM product on every one of our projects. We'll use the drone on the exterior a lot of the time for context. And then again, depending on what the client needs, we might bring in a terrestrial scanner to get, for more control measurements and for granularity. But that's not always the case that we need that level of detail. I think I covered most of the stuff that you wanted in the slide, and probably took up everybody's time. Thanks for coming today, everybody.
Webinar over. No, thank you very much. No, that was a fantastic answer. It's really interesting to know that you were original ZEB1 customer. I'm not sure that I actually knew that myself.
I should get a T-shirt or a hat or something for that.
You should get probably more than that, a plaque or something.
Do you still have it, Jim? Do you still have the device?
No, I had this guy to my right, or I don't know how this Brady Bunch thing works there, but Robert was able to parlay our ZEB1 into a new Horizon for us, which was awesome.
Very cool. Very, very cool. All right, well, I think that's all for me on that question. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. And can you guys just confirm that you can share, or you can see my screen? I'm not sure how this sharing versus unsharing thing really works.
Yep, it's good.
Okay, great. All right, so the next question is for Greg at PPM. Wanted to ask what kinds of projects or projects are you using GeoSLAM technology for? What criteria do you use to decide which system you're going to use for a specific job? I know you have other systems available to you, other types of technology available to you. So kind of tying back into what we asked Bobby. And what kind of criteria are there? Is it size of project, scope of project, LOD, LOA standards? And when would you consider using another type of technology instead of GeoSLAM? What kind of criteria would that have to meet in order to use something else? So we'll start there.
Awesome. Yeah, well, when we started, unfortunately, we missed out on the ZEB1. I'm a little bummed that I never got to use it. But when we started, all that was available at the time was the ZEB1 and the new ZEB Revo at the time. So we use both the Revo and the Horizon on our projects. The Revo is perfect in terms of range and size for most of the residential projects we work on. And that's really where both of our ZEBs get the most work, is on our residential projects. And we do, I forget what our annual number is at, because it keeps getting bigger when we bring on new offices, but we do probably 500-600 residential projects a year, if not more. So the ZEBs are getting out pretty regularly, but that really is just the perfect size for the ZEB Revo. The Horizon comes in very handy, like Jim was talking about, when we have larger projects or projects with a lot of open space, or any sort of facility projects where we might have multiple buildings that we're trying to capture. That's when that range really starts to come in handy, and the density from the Horizon starts to come in handy. So usually size is the biggest factor when we start looking at choosing between the Revo and Horizon. That said, and this is kind of fascinating to me, but we've got a team of surveyors in each city that we have an office, and the guys have just kind of gravitated toward one tool or the other. Like, I have guys who would prefer to do even a 1,000 square foot home with the Horizon. It's just like they like the way it works better. They like the capabilities it has better. So yeah, that's so even though there is a bit of a property split, there's also kind of a user split among our teams. Yeah, where some people just feel more comfortable with the Revo on everything. And then sometimes the project manager kind of dictates, based on the project, who they're going to put on it based on the project type. Yeah, so what were the other parts of the question? Something about...
Sorry,
yeah.
I share, or unsharing it so that they can see you guys. Yeah,
Gotcha.
So basically, like, talking about criteria. So, like, are you basing that on the size of the project, the scope of the project? Do you guys use LOD, LOA standards, and are using that to kind of dictate which technology you're using? And then lastly, when you're using other type of technology, other LiDAR systems or other survey technology, why are you using that instead of GeoSLAM?
Yeah. So in terms of LOD and LOA, we do use LOD to scope our projects. That said, for the most part, it's pretty rare that we get above LOD 200 for any of our regional work, for the residential work, and even the regional commercial work that we do. We have a handful of clients who do need LOD 300 and do need pretty much all disciplines, modeled, structural, MEP, everything. Once we start getting into 3D modeling of structural and MEP at an LOD 300 level, that's when we have to kind of flip to terrestrial and start looking at that for a solution. Even though the GeoSLAM tools handle occlusion really well, you can really get around a lot of the larger elements of the MEP systems. For some projects, we're modeling MEP down to 3/4 of an inch diameter, and even though we capture it with the GeoSLAM tools, the noise, it starts to get a little iffy in terms of getting that modeled. So that's kind of the flipping point for us when we go from GeoSLAM to the terrestrial tools.
Yeah, that makes sense. I always kind of tell customers, I set a threshold of a couple inches. Anything that's a couple inches and smaller,
yeah,
it's just really difficult to model accurately in the data. It doesn't mean that you're not going to see it and be able to locate it. It just means it's going to be hard to differentiate between 3/4 inch conduit and a 1/2 inch conduit, right? So things like that are just kind of hard to differentiate because of the level of detail of the point cloud that's produced from the system. So that's a good distinction to make.
Yep.
Excellent. All right, well, I think we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. All right, and this next question is for Bobby Vargo at Keystone Precision. I wanted to ask, how substantial do you think the learning curve is when adopting this technology for CAD and BIM? I know you work with a lot of different customers and a lot of different industries with a lot of different applications, but a little bit more narrow on CAD and BIM, and talk about what are some of the main hurdles that you see, what are the main questions that you get asked during kind of the sales process and the initial unboxing and training process, and How does that relate to things like field capture, post-processing, interoperability, learning new software, overall workflow, things like that?
Absolutely. No, and I think this is a really great, it's a really great topic, and it kind of gives a really good view as to, Brian, what you and I do on a day-to-day working with all of our customers. It's really helping people where they fall on this, I'll call it like an education / exposure spectrum of the software. So people like Greg and Jim here, who have been in this business for a long time and have exposure to the nitty gritty of the software all the way through the different hardware that they've seen over the years, they have a really good exposure of exactly what Greg brought up earlier for the LOD 300 requirements and where they need to find that perfect line between when a SLAM-based solution versus a terrestrial scanner is more appropriate. So the learning curve tends to be around the accuracy discussion. How well is the customers that are talking to us, how well are they communicating to their customers, and how much do they know? And obviously, if you're a new business and you're starting out, you're going to have to talk to customer after customer after customer, figure out what their pipeline is going to be for deliverables, and then work back to see which device they need. So a lot of, outside of the accuracy discussion, I would say the next big topic is software. So what are you looking to deliver first? And like, you know, Brian, GeoSLAM has come up with some really good tools recently with floor plans and a few other things like the change detection portion of the construction side of your software. Really, what is the customer trying to deliver first? So typically, if they're new to 3D modeling, they tend to start with 2D modeling, like floor plans. So what is a customer going to pay them to deliver a full AutoCAD 2D rendering of their entire facility, right? Or do they want full-blown 3D models? So it revolves around those two subjects when it comes to kind of defining where their initial deliverable is going to be. And then from there, we can work backwards with what hardware device is the best for them, what software interface do they want to go in, do we have to mix in geo-positioning or geolocating of any? Does it take this horizon over my shoulder and require running it with locate or A2C or any of these other tools that we have at our disposal? And then what are they crunching and pushing off to their, or delivering to their customer? So very much like you mentioned, the interoperability and post-processing, a lot of that is then derived from nailing down the initial software discussion, and then you can find where all your holes are. Because if you don't have somebody that's up to speed on AutoCAD, that's something that will take investment in personnel and training and all that. So it's in scope creep, right? Like we all want to do everything and deliver the most perfect thing to our customers. But like Jim and Greg know, it comes down to man hours and who's allotted and how many projects they have to run. So finding the 18-month or 12-month or 18-month goal, and then the 5-year goal. So that's all mixed into the whole accuracy and software discussion. I hope that kind of hits on all the points.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't agree with you more. That seems like those are the main things that come up. You know, you and I largely do kind of the same role from different sides of the table, but yeah, I do find a lot of discussion around accuracy that can be kind of a hurdle and kind of overcoming what those accuracy requirements are and you know, how they work for the work that they're doing. You know, it's largely different depending on which customer you're talking to and what they're doing and what technology they've already seen and that kind of how much they've been exposed to it, like you mentioned before. And then I do a lot of kind of consulting on overall workflow. You know, how do I take this technology from point A to this end deliverable? And you know, what steps are in between, and you know, what do you recommend? So you know, I end up talking about a lot of other third-party software and stuff when we're getting into that, because you know, GeoSLAM doesn't have necessarily an end-to-end solution for every customer. We really focus on that capture side and the data collection side, and then making all of that streamlined and easy to kind of flow into those third-party software. Yeah, so that is the steps. Those steps in between tend to be the place where most questions come up in regards to adopting the technology. So
Yeah, and luckily Jim and I live in the greater Boston area pretty close to each other, so me helping him is nice. But one of the things that, just to compare it to, is GIS workflow. So GIS workflow and the hardware to capture that while capturing GPS in the middle of Boston Common with the towers around you, it's hard. The amount of sky you're seeing is low. So the accuracy that somebody would get using a GIS solution or even like a survey GPS solution, they might suffer due to the urban canyons that you see there, versus maybe running off a ground control with the Zeb Horizon behind me and pulling the actual locations from the point cloud instead, which is more up Jim's alley, right? So it's really how you navigate which tool is the best for your job, and really who do you know to do what.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to the next question. I do apologize. There's some construction noise in the background, so I will be muting myself after I finish answering or asking this next question. So next question is for back to Jim Foster at PointKnown. Wanted to ask, what are your overall impressions now that you've done numerous projects with GeoSLAM technology? You've kind of been with us since the beginning. What are your impressions of the BIM-CAD workflow that kind of comes out of GeoSLAM? And what are some of the main challenges there, and how have you worked to overcome them over the years?
Yeah, I don't know if I like being referred to almost as like the old guy in the room at this point. Jim, you've been around forever. But one thing I wanted to discuss briefly, and I think it dovetails with Robert's answer, and let's just say point clouds in general. Point clouds were, starting with the early terrestrial scanners, they were offered as this like panacea that it cures every ill that capturing the built environment has. And the fact of the matter is, I see Greg kind of nodding and laughing at the point, is because the fact it doesn't, right? It doesn't overcome institutional knowledge, right? Architectural knowledge, how you have to deal with point clouds inbound, right? And how you have to digest them. And I'm sure Greg and I have similar methods, but we've been doing it for a while. We're going to take these point clouds inbound and do different things with them. We also know where different technologies fall down, or if there was a bad scanning session, what happened, and know how we have to overcome that. So it's a tool, right? And I don't want to say and for us and people in the industry, I think it's a phenomenal tool, right? Because the quality of data that you get and the quickness of how you get it, for us, right? For us, it was an easy button, right? But I don't want to say it's an easy button for everyone else, because if you're new to it and you're trying to digest the point cloud, I'll get when point clouds first came out, architects were angry, right? They were getting point clouds delivered to them, and they're like, you told me I was going to have all this great data, and the point cloud, it is data, but it's not the point, right? That's not what people are going to digest in their own organization, right? And getting that to that point is a whole different thing. And so, again, for me, for Greg and stuff, I think it's totally an easy button. I'm putting words in Greg's mouth. It really helps out our organization. People are new to it. You're still going to have to figure out, there's still a learning curve, right? I think it's worth taking, but anyway, just throwing that out, because I think, again, it's something that people who are selling the solutions, you don't understand how to bring it inbound. That's a process as well. So, so the main challenges, right, when we first started with the GeoSLAM, I think that was on the slide, was originally, again, with the Zeb 1 is range, right? It was range. And what happens is, and again, I'm not privy of how the algorithms worked, is you would get data drift because of the range issues. And that was sort of the biggest issue with us. And sometimes maybe the algorithms would fall down when you're inside a hub and you'd have to reprocess. And this is where I want to give a shout out. It sounds like I'm working for you, and maybe I should be wearing orange at this point. But our experience with the support folks at GeoSLAM when the data does fall down has been phenomenal. So I'm going to give a shout out to Adam and Hector,
Yep.
who have just been spectacular. Like Hector, I don't think the guy sleeps. Like I might be processing something, like something came inbound, and right because of a deadline, we're working over the weekend, and it's Sunday, and it feels like it's 2 in the morning UK time, and Hector's getting back to me. So sorry, Hector, if I'm going to put more pressure on you there. And Adam's the same way. They've been terrific from a support issue. So I guess it's range where it's been the issue, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, what our experience was. Doing a large industrial project where it has repeatable grids, and meaning, you have, let's say they're 20-foot bays, right? Steel columns, truss work. It looks really the same going across. I've seen the algorithm and sort of the software kind of get confused and maybe fall down a little bit. It wouldn't mean I wouldn't use the GeoSLAM in there. What it meant is I brought a terrestrial scanner in there also to make sure I had, scans at distance. So that would be an issue that I've had with GeoSLAM. Again, our progression through your whole model range and using the horizon, again has overcome some of those data drift and distance issues. And then it comes down to, again, density of data. And again, Greg alluded to the fact that some people like one machine or more than another. We're using the horizon most of the time, unless we have to bring the Revo out if we're doubling up on jobs, just because the density of data allows us to just do better modeling when we bring it back into the office. So that might be a case. So we will use it in even smaller homes, just because we found again the density of the data cloud to be worth it. So I think that's kind of strengths and weaknesses. I think I covered it. I don't know. I don't have the slide in front of me, but if there's more to cover, we can do it at the end if people have questions, about anything specific.
I guess just a quick follow-up question. I mean, have you seen some of these workflow issues you talked?
I'm sorry, Brian. We just
talked about.
Brian, could you repeat the question? You just sort of skipped out a little bit.
Sorry about that. I've got a lot of noise in the background. I don't know if that's causing an issue, but just wanted to ask if some of those hurdles are getting easier for you now. You mentioned, with the horizon, the data stitching is a lot cleaner. Is that progressing? And I guess how can it continue to improve?
No, I agree. No, with the horizon, right, the amount of data we're collecting, and after merging files, doing all that stuff, we would certainly see a lot more of the data drift using the Revo, and I just think that has to do with the range and how it's processing, and we're not seeing it nearly as much with the horizon, and that's probably why we're sort of start leaning to using the horizon as much as we can, just because from a post-processing point of view, it's been easier for us.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, the Revo system is easy to push it beyond its limits, but the horizon system is much harder to push it beyond its limits, just because of the longer range and the higher point density. It really does beef up the SLAM's ability to stitch data together, especially in kind of complex and difficult environments. So that's great feedback.
Yeah, it's been great.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next question. And this one is for Greg at PPM. And we talked a bit about this just a little bit before we signed on, and sounds like this maybe isn't the best question directed towards you, but we'll work through it anyways. So wanted to ask how you're using GeoSLAM Draw in your workflow currently. Maybe what are your overall impressions of it as a product, and what kind of place does it have in your business? Does it enhance or add efficiency to the work that you're doing? Why or why not? And if you're not using GeoSLAM Draw, or you decide not to use GeoSLAM Draw in your workflow, what does that workflow look like instead? What other tools are you using and prefer to use to kind of fill that void?
Yeah. So yeah, we did chat a little bit about this. So we've demoed it. We've run some R&D on GeoSLAM Draw. And to be fair, we've also used a handful of other automated vectorization tools out there and tried them as well. But while we see the use and the benefit of efficiency of those tools, our CAD and BIM teams some of these guys have been doing this for 20 years, and we've just built out super efficient CAD processes, and we've just found that we're still faster without the use of any of the automated vectorization tools, draw included. Now, part of that is a function of the fact that the core of our business, the residential as-builts, they're smaller projects, and the features are more dense, they're a little more complex, so you just don't get as much benefit from the automated vectorization. There's a lot of cleanup that you still need to do. And basically, by the time our guys would be done doing the cleanup, they could have the thing mostly, drafted and cranked out. So, a place where we do see some benefits using GeoSLAM Draw or any other automated vectorization options would be on larger projects where the amount of line work that you're kind of filling in with that automated process is just a lot broader. So the cleanup can maybe then become a little more worth it. But yeah, we've still just found anything that's sort of tough to compete with our in-house processes on cranking through the 3D data to create CAD or Revit files. Yeah. And maybe that's a little bit of a humble brag on our guys over at the Utah office, but they really have built. PPM is a pretty process-heavy company, from our production workflows to our business workflows. So that's definitely been huge from day one, and yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, great answer. Yeah, it's GeoSLAM Draw, in my opinion, is one of those things that like you mentioned, it adds that efficiency to the vectorization process, but sometimes the cleanup work and getting that all together in the end really takes just as much time as if you had just started from the beginning. So one of the things I really like to use GeoSLAM Draw for is not necessarily the vectorization tool. I use that a bit, but I use GeoSLAM Draw pretty frequently for those ortho images. So we were able to create basically two-dimensional images and kick those out as DWG files and like kind of slices of the point cloud data. And those images can be brought into any CAD or BIM platform and kind of used as an underlay, like instead of the point cloud. And I do see a lot of customers using those underlays, because point clouds can be kind of heavy, they can be kind of clunky depending on which software you're working in. And GeoSLAM Draw and those can really help out a lot. We work with a couple ArchiCAD customers just recently, as well as ArchiCAD dealers, and that's a program that doesn't like point clouds very much, or doesn't really work with heavy point clouds, and GeoSLAM Draw adds a lot of efficiency just with the ability to use sections and things like that.
Yeah, computing power is definitely a big part of it, and that was a big hurdle for PPM at the onset of working with point clouds. And that, to go back to the question a little bit that Jim was answering, that was one of our hurdles in getting started. We had, when we first started using the GeoSLAM systems in 2017, we had a bunch of 5-year-old CAD workstations, and we tried to put some point clouds through those, and it was really, really tough. So getting our workstation infrastructure built up was definitely clutch in helping us use the 3D data more efficiently.
All right, thank you for that answer, and we'll go ahead and move on to, I think this is the second to last question. And this one is for Bobby at Keystone. I wanted to talk a little bit about comparing mobile versus static scanners and some of the pros and cons. We've talked about this already a little bit in some of the other previous questions, but Just want to talk about, when you would recommend using a static scanner versus a mobile scanner. And also, this one's kind of directed to be a very pointed question, but what would you say to somebody who doesn't believe that mobile scanners and the data that come out of mobile scanners are accurate enough or detailed enough to use for scan to BIM or scan to CAD workflows?
No, that's a really good question. And with all the movement that we've seen in technology, it's like, to Jim's lingo, like, where's the easy button? Like, where is the easy line of criteria of sliders that you can move along to say, oh, do I need terrestrial? Do I need mobile? Do I need to look at land mobile, for instance, and mount something on a vehicle? So my best way of talking about this subject is really working with what your sliders are. What's important to your company? Is it the pace at which you capture? Is it the extreme accuracy that some MEP applications demand? Or is it more of a GIS mapping discussion? So that's just one slider on accuracy there that you can use. Another one being time on site. So I know, after speaking with Jim a good bit, he loves the fact that he can be in and out of a building in 45 minutes. If you try to do that traditional workflow with a scanner, even the fastest terrestrial scanners from Team Yellow and that other green team, you can see the speed right away. So, for instance, I had a customer that said, I don't believe that the Zeb Horizon is going to save me that much time. So I took a Team Yellow auto registering product and I ran it against the Zeb Horizon here in our 18,000 square foot office. We have about 16 rooms, including the warehouse. With the Horizon, we covered it in 17 minutes. I turned around and I processed the point cloud and had it out the other end in another 19 minutes. And then I was only 7 scans in with that Team Yellow auto registering terrestrial, which is a hot product, but still. That, and after running the exercise with the auto registering terrestrial, it took us 3 hours and 45 minutes. He didn't stay, he left. I told him I would get back to him later on it. And so 17 minutes versus 3 hours and 45 minutes. From Jim and Greg's perspective, they know which one they want right now. They're nodding yes. They're like, all right, I want to be in and out in 17 minutes and already have the data under a half hour off to or just a little bit over a half hour, sorry, making sure my math's correct, is off to my modeling team. So that is another huge part of the slider, right? So we've identified time and accuracy being two of the key drivers there. And then also is cost. So cost then talks to all of the other factors at the same time. And then you also have to think about use case. So can you set up a terrestrial scanner on a highway during an accident? God forbid there's an accident. Not really. It takes a lot of time. If you have to get a certain distance away from the accident, for instance, you're going to have your terrestrial scanner right on the border of where traffic's passing. You don't want to do that either. Versus having something like the Zeb Revo or the Zeb Horizon in your car, you can get that whole crash scene taken care of in 10 or 12 minutes, and you're holding up traffic for less time. And then then you have the other side of the scale where it's how much ground do you want to cover? I mean, I would say for GIS mapping purposes in an urban environment, the Zeb Horizon's great because you don't have to worry about standing there collecting satellite information with GPS-based equipment. And also, you can be focused on modeling without all these other people interfering with your field crews there. But then there's a certain point where not even the Horizon can keep up with some of the land mobile mapping vehicles that you have out there now that are built to cover 125 miles in a day, depending on what their use case is. So it's all a matter of sliders and what's important to your company. So I guess distance and cost are the other two. So realistically, with those, you can jiggle them around and find the right fit. And it comes down to software proficiency too. That's a hidden one on the back end. Is We could talk about 2D drawings all day long, but like we brought up and discussed before, if this is your first time receiving an inbound point cloud, maybe you do have to outsource it in the beginning to somebody else until you build the internal competence or internal skills as a team to handle the files.
Yeah, great points. I always kind of say, like, mobile scanning and static scanning, they don't compete with each other. They both have kind of a place in the market and a place in everybody's workflow. And it sounds like Bobby and all of us are kind of using both for projects and kind of swapping them in and out based on need and accuracy requirements and things like that. But it is really nice with a mobile scanner to get in and get out and get your data really, really fast. Most of the time, that's 10 times, sometimes 15 times faster than you ever could with a static scanner. But a lot of times you need that level of detail for MEP work, for those really detailed, high LOD CAD and BIM models. So yeah, sometimes it's necessary and sometimes it's not. So you do sacrifice a little bit of accuracy with the mobile scanner, but in my opinion, it's worth it for the speed that you get.
And very much to your point, I think Greg and Jim will agree, this is the stuff that we get out of our customers and onto the whiteboard and say, which one do you want? And then after you get that out of the way, the rest of the discussion works like clockwork. So after you're able to identify what really is the end deliverable, then it's all churn and burn through the rest of it.
I'm a big supporter of transparency and just kind of laying out all the information, saying, look, these are your options and here's all the data, you make the decision. So I'm a big fan of that. I want customers to have the right system in their hand and have the right tool for the work that they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, and we'll move on to, I believe this is the last question, and I want to actually open this up to all the panelists. So the question is, would you recommend GeoSLAM technology for 3D modeling and 2D workflows? I hope the answer is yes, but well, in general, why or why not? Maybe you can give a little bit more complex answer to that. And what advice would you give to somebody who's either looking into this technology or they're just starting out with this technology? Let's start with Greg.
Yes is the answer. We absolutely would recommend it. We have 6 scanners, soon to be 8 GeoSLAM scanners going out every day. I just hopped in our system. We've done 2,100, a little over 2,100 surveys with GeoSLAM tools since 2017, and that I feel speaks for itself. And on those projects, we do 2D and 3D modeling for those projects. What Bobby was touching on before, the sliders, speed versus cost and deliverable and scope, those things are all things to consider. But when we brought on the GeoSLAM tools, it really was to just to supplement our existing workflow to speed it up and give us the opportunity to build efficiencies that just were never ever available to us before. So it really has, revolutionized our process from going to the field to getting the CAD deliverables done. Yeah. And then in terms of advice, practice, training, it takes a little bit to get used to the tool, but guys like Brian are going to be able to get you off to a great start. And then again, just the computing basics. Draw does do a lot to give you the opportunity to work with those 2D slices and get that done. But just be prepared for some heavy data crunching, even on the processing side in the field.
Yeah, I really appreciate the comment on kind of practicing with the system and learning it as you go, because we do have pretty commonly people take it out for the first time and they go out and scan $1 million project with it, and it's big. There's a lot of hurdles and things to overcome. So having that exposure to it and kind of working your way up, use it on small residential projects, kind of slowly work it into your workflow until you feel really comfortable with it, and then you can start to scale that up pretty rapidly once you've got that confidence and comfortability with the overall system. So I appreciate that feedback. All right, let's go to Jim. How about you?
I think obviously yes, right? I would use it. We use it every day. I don't have my numbers in hand like Greg does. I like how he just popped that. Were you making that up, Greg? You're like, I don't know, 2100 sounds good.
That's all real data.
Oh, I'm feeling bad about not having that at my fingertips. But obviously we use it every day, and I would use it for both. I would say people who are new to it, there's no getting around, like when you look at the data, you're investigating the data, taking tons of section cuts. There's not an easy button necessarily to create data that your client or you want to digest with it. I would say the easiest step, at least when you're starting, is taking, and you alluded to it, Brian, how you can do those ortho TIFFs as underlays, and what looks like a floor plan, right, gets traced over, essentially, right? And that's how people are creating, starting to create, or taking value out of the point cloud data. And I think that's an easier place to start, like as a first step, thinking that I can take a point cloud, and yeah, I think I can create value with 2D floor plans relatively quickly. I think that's kind of safe. Taking that next kind of leap to understanding point clouds in 3D is kind of another animal, right? There aren't, at least in my experience, and again, Greg said, like, we don't use a lot of third-party tools because our team is really good at the processes we put in place. Kind of same with us. We don't use a lot of third-party tools because we haven't found those convenience factors, where you can press a button and stuff happens, that it's worthwhile. Again, as a tool, collecting it all day, every day, right? 2D floor plans, easy first step. Creating a 3D model from the point cloud is really just experience and taking a lot of time and understanding how you have to look at data, how buildings are even put together. So expectations of how you're putting structure together in buildings, take some time. So collection all the time. 2D floor plans, first step, and then understanding the whole 3D modeling process.
I always like to say there's no magic scan to BIM or scan to CAD button. I wish I could come up with one. It's not here yet. But I think automation's getting better, feature extraction's getting better. All these tools are continuing to improve. Auto vectorization, things like that are getting better, and so keep an eye on those things. But there's a lot of efficiency to be gained out there if you just kind of take it one step at a time. And like I said, like you said, start kind of with the low-hanging fruit. Start with the easy stuff and build from there. All right, last but not least, Bobby, what do you think?
Well, I think they pretty much hit the nail on the head there. There isn't really, in terms of core answer to this question, absolutely yes, very much like Jim and Greg have already mentioned. And like you just said, Brian, it's how, or we've all said throughout this past hour, is really what exposure level do people have getting into it? Do you have a lot of CAD experience? Do you have a lot of terrestrial scanning experience? Is your experience in the field, or is your experience in the office? Or do you have no experience at all? So in terms of getting, I guess I'll focus more on this getting started out question, is kind of like we brought up, narrowing down, do you want to start with the low-hanging fruit for the 2D floor plans? How do you want to get into the equipment? So I know at Keystone and other GeoSLAM dealers throughout the United States, there's different ways of getting into this equipment, whether it's a hardware as a service setup or whether it's a leasing agreement or something like that. How you step in and begin to invest, you can explore that with the technology partners like Keystone and everybody else under the GeoSLAM umbrella. And then also, Jim has been very helpful to some of my customers too. getting different customers in contact with each other in an educational sense, right? So they understand that they can't bite off more than they can chew. So realistically walking people through what they want to do today or in the next 12 months, and then what they want to do in 5 years. And everybody's going to find that workflow. So the workflow that somebody finds starting out is going to be different than what juggernauts like Jim and Greg do here. They have absolutely figured out and sat there and watched the hours go by, right? And they're like, oh my God, I could save an hour here if I eliminate this step. So they've had the time and they've done their due diligence to figure out all those loopholes. And it's fine not having that 5-year software right from the beginning. So that's where GeoSLAM Draw comes in. Is yes, it's a good value focused option for evaluating your point clouds. It might be a great place for some customers to start. And then they're like, oh, okay, maybe I now want to take a step into Autodesk, or oh, maybe I like so-and-so software over here. So it's not, I can't, even though I want to be a Formula One driver, I can't go to the Grand Prix in Italy this past weekend and jump into Lewis Hamilton's car and expect to win. So there's all of this nuance and a ton of things that you need to realize and become exposed to. And that's where, like, working with yourself, Brian, or working with Jim or Greg here, they'll help these people figure these questions out, because they're big questions. I think that's kind of an obtuse answer, but I hope it makes sense.
I think I'm putting Juggernaut on my business card now.
List of special skills.
Juggernaut, I love it.
Or that one guy that can fix any problem on your team. You just give him the Juggernaut title and else.
I love it.
Or Hectorus. We'll give that to Hector.
Well, that's a great answer and great question to finish on. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us today. And this was a fantastic discussion, as I knew it would be. Yeah, if you guys want to reach out to any of these guys for any of your GeoSLAM needs, please do not hesitate to do so. They're great resources. Also, just some kind of promotional marketing stuff. Did want to let you know that we have a demo in a box program where we will ship you a GeoSLAM system and let you try it out for yourself. If you're interested in evaluating and checking out this technology, this is a program that we offer. Please follow the link below, geoslam.com/demo-in-a-box, to sign up, and we will be reaching out to you very shortly after that to get you set up. Also, please join us on all of our social media channels to find out more about what GeoSLAM's up to, new products, things like that. We're always posting fun stuff on LinkedIn and Instagram and places like that. So please follow us on these social media channels. And just to wrap up, thanks guys for joining. This is a fantastic discussion. I always appreciate taking the time to chat with us about all the things that you're working on. It sounds like you guys are all very proficient and experts, juggernauts even at this technology. And I learn a lot every time we talk, and I just think that this is a fantastic way for us to kind of all get together and have a chat in a formalized way and share a lot of information with current and prospective GeoSLAM customers who are interested in this technology or interested in really kind of pushing this to the next level. So we did not have any questions in the chat window. I hope you guys were just also interested in everything we were saying, that you didn't have anything to add. But if you do have any questions following this, please feel free to email us at info@geoslam.com or of course visit our website for more information at geoslam.com. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day.
Terrific. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.